Title. Her voice trembled, but her hands didn't. Part 1. The beginning. 600 words. I noticed her before she spoke. Something about the way she stood, still, but not at ease, made the air feel thicker around her. She wasn't trying to be noticed. That's what made her impossible to ignore. The late afternoon light cut across the room and rested on her face, softening the faint lines near her mouth, the ones that made her look like she smiled often but hadn't lately. She said my name like she was testing how it felt on her tongue. "You came." I nodded. I wanted to say something clever, or at least something that didn't sound as small as "yeah," but my throat didn't quite cooperate. I told myself it was the long day, the heat, the fact that her eyes met mine and didn't move away. She motioned for me to come closer, nothing dramatic, just a slight turn of her hand. The kind of gesture that could be mistaken for casual if it weren't so deliberate. "I wasn't sure you'd still remember," she said, her voice low, slightly rough around the edges. "I remembered," I said. "You don't really forget someone who—" I stopped. The words tangled somewhere between my tongue and my chest. She smiled faintly, as if she'd heard the sentence anyway. "Who what?" But she didn't press. She turned instead, walked toward the window, and I caught myself noticing the way her blouse moved against her back, silk against skin, quiet friction. I shouldn't have noticed that, but I did. The room was too still. A single clock ticked somewhere, the sound stretching between us. She looked outside. "It's strange seeing you again. You're taller. Maybe you just forgot how short I used to be," I said. Her laugh, soft, sudden, filled the space. It didn't sound rehearsed. I liked that. It was the kind of laugh that came from surprise, not from habit. She turned back toward me, and the light from the window caught in her hair, small silver strands glinting like something earned, not lost. "How long has it been?" she asked. 3 years, I said. 3, she repeated, like the word itself meant something more. "You've changed." "So have you." That made her pause. She tilted her head, not flattered, curious. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "You look realer somehow." Her lips parted, not to smile, not quite. She looked at me like she was remembering something she shouldn't. For a moment, the silence between us felt alive. Then she walked closer, a step, maybe 2. Close enough that I could smell her perfume, faint and familiar, like the end of a summer evening. Her hand brushed against mine as she reached for the folder on the table. Just a touch. But her fingers didn't flinch the way mine did. She glanced at our hands, then up at me. "You're still nervous," she said softly. "You're still not," I replied before I could stop myself. That earned a real smile, small, secret, like a dare. The air shifted. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. She looked at me for a moment longer than necessary, her eyes searching for something I didn't know how to hide. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. "You shouldn't look at me like that." "But you're the one who called me," I said quietly. Her breath caught. She didn't move, didn't look away. For a second, I thought she might say something, confess, explain, anything. But then, a sound broke the stillness. The door behind us opened with a slow creak. She turned sharply, her hand still close to mine. And just like that, the moment shattered, the warmth, the nearness, everything hanging between us, suspended in the space of a breath. The door had opened, and just like that, the moment dissolved into something awkward and ordinary. A neighbor asking about a misplaced package. A small interruption, but enough to make her step back, enough to make me remember where I was, who she was. When the door closed again, silence returned, heavier this time. She busied herself with papers on the table, not looking at me. I watched the back of her hand as she adjusted a page, steady, graceful, almost clinical. You'd never guess her voice had trembled just minutes before. "Sorry about that," she said. "I wasn't expecting anyone." "It's fine," I said too quickly. I didn't know what else to say. The space between us was full of everything we hadn't She poured coffee into 2 cups, black for her, too sweet for me. Still the same? She asked without looking. Still pretending I like it that way, I said. That made her laugh, quiet and brief. The kind of sound that didn't belong to anyone else in the world. We sat across from each other, a table's width apart that somehow felt like miles. I studied her hands as she stirred her coffee, silver ring on her index finger, nails neatly kept. There was a faint mark on her wrist, like the ghost of a watch she didn't wear anymore. It made me wonder if someone had once given it to her. Someone she'd stopped waiting for. She caught me staring. What? Nothing, I said. Just thinking. About? I hesitated. About how someone like you ends up sitting here with someone like me. Her lips twitched. Someone like me? You know what I mean. She leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowing slightly. You think I shouldn't be here? I think you don't usually let people close, I said before I could take it back. That silenced her. She looked down at her cup, her reflection trembling in the dark surface. You're right, she said finally. I don't. The admission hung between us like something fragile. I was married once, she said, eyes still on the coffee. It was a long time ago. I didn't ask what happened. I didn't need to. There was something in the way she spoke, careful, deliberate, like someone who'd learned not to expect gentleness in return. She set her cup down, fingers brushing the rim. You should be careful with people like me. I don't think I can be, I said quietly. Her eyes lifted, and for a second I thought she might laugh, or warn me again. Instead, she stood and crossed the small distance between us. She reached past me to grab a folder from the counter, but her hand paused on my shoulder, just long enough for the warmth to register, for my breath to catch. Neither of us moved. Her breath brushed the side of my neck as she spoke, almost a whisper. You don't make it easy to keep distance. I wasn't trying to, I said. She smiled, soft, reluctant, like someone realizing the rules had already been broken. When she pulled her hand away, the air where it had been felt colder. But the bond between us, invisible, fragile, real, had already tightened, and neither of us would be able to unfeel it. It happened late, later than either of us meant to stay. The sun had long dipped below the window frame, leaving only the soft hum of streetlights and the faint ticking of the clock that seemed louder with every passing minute. She was sorting through papers again, pretending to focus. I pretended to help. But neither of us was really looking at the folders in front of us. Our hands brushed once. Then again. The second time, either of us moved away. You should go, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I know. But I didn't move. Her gaze flicked up, meeting mine, and for a moment we were both caught, suspended between sense and something heavier. I could hear her breath, slow but uneven, and I wondered if she could hear mine. She took a step back, then another, like she needed space to breathe. This isn't, she began, then stopped. Isn't what? I asked quietly. Appropriate. There it was, the word we'd both been avoiding. I nodded, though my chest tightened. Because of the age difference? She hesitated. Because I know better, she said finally. And you should too. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It buzzed with everything unsaid. Then her phone buzzed on the table, startling both of us. She reached for it quickly, but the screen lit up before she could flip it, a name flashing across it. I didn't mean to read it, but I did. Mark. A man's name. Her face changed, not panic, not guilt, just a subtle tightening, a faint shadow crossing her features. Work, she said, setting the phone down untouched. Always work. But her voice sounded brittle now. I should have stood, said goodnight, walked out. Instead, I said softly, You don't owe anyone an explanation. That made her look at me, sharply, searchingly, as if she wanted to believe it but couldn't. You don't understand, she murmured. Then help me, I said. Make me understand. She looked torn, a thousand thoughts flickering behind her eyes. Then, almost despite herself, she moved closer, one step, then two. The faint scent of her perfume filled the air, that same soft warmth that had already made a home in my memory. Her hand hovered near my chest, not touching, just there, trembling slightly. "This shouldn't happen," she said, voice shaking. "I know." Her breath brushed against my cheek, close enough that it felt like a touch. My pulse quickened. She didn't pull away. For one unbearable second, it felt inevitable, the air between us drawn tight, gravity closing the distance. Then, from the hallway, a faint knock. We froze. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to me. Neither of us moved, barely breathing. The knock came again, softer this time, almost uncertain. She pressed her hand against my arm, steady but firm. "Not now," she whispered. And though the moment had broken, her hand didn't leave mine until the silence returned. We both knew what that meant. The door might have saved us, but it had also made us certain of what we were trying not to want. I tried not to come back. I told myself it was better to leave things unfinished, to let the moment stay unspoken. But 3 days later, I was standing outside her door again, hand raised, heartbeat too loud, half hoping she wouldn't answer. She did. Her eyes flicked to the clock behind me, then back to my face. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." "Then why are you?" I didn't have a good answer. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about that night." That made her still. "There was no that night," she said softly, as if trying to convince herself to. But her tone betrayed her. She stepped aside. "You might as well come in." The lights inside were dim, warm. She'd been reading, a cup of tea half finished, a blanket thrown across the couch. Something about seeing her like that, not composed, not guarded, made it harder to keep distance. She sat down, crossing one leg over the other, arms folded loosely. "So," she said, "what are you looking for?" "An answer," I said. "To what?" "To whether you meant it." She looked up slowly. "Meant what?" "The way you looked at me." Her breath hitched. The air thickened. She stood abruptly, pacing toward the window. "You're too young to understand what that look means. I'm old enough to know when someone's lying." That stopped her. Her reflection in the glass looked smaller, lonelier. I walked closer, careful, deliberate. "You keep pretending this is nothing." "But it isn't." She didn't turn. "And what do you think this is?" I hesitated, not because I didn't know, but because saying it would make it real. "Something we both want," I said finally. Silence. Then, a whisper. "You shouldn't say that." "But it's true." Her hand lifted, pressing lightly against the window pane. I could see her fingers trembling. When I reached out, I didn't touch her at first, just hovered close, close enough to feel the warmth from her skin. "You don't have to be afraid of this," I said. She turned, and for the first time, she didn't look away. Her eyes shone, not just with feeling, but with conflict. "You think I'm afraid?" she said. I nodded. "I think you've been afraid for a long time." Her lips parted, maybe to deny it, maybe to confess. But instead she reached up, brushed her fingers against my cheek. The touch was careful, trembling, like she was memorizing something she shouldn't. "You don't know what you're asking for," she whispered. "Then show me." Her breath caught. The space between us disappeared, almost. I could feel the warmth of her breath against my mouth, the faint tremor in her fingers as they slid from my jaw to my neck. For a second, everything else fell away, the rules, the difference in years, the world outside the room. And then a knock. Louder this time. Her eyes widened. My pulse stopped. The door handle turned. She stepped back, voice barely a whisper. "Don't say anything." And before the door opened, before whoever it was could see, her trembling hand found mine under the table and held on tight. It was her colleague at the door, a man around her age, dressed too neatly, holding a briefcase like a shield. "Did I come at a bad time?" he asked, eyes flicking between us. She smiled too quickly. "Not at all. Just finishing up." I stepped back, the warmth of her hand fading instantly. My pulse was still racing, but I tried to look calm, like I hadn't almost crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The man nodded at me, polite but curious. You must be the intern she's been talking about. I froze. Intern. Her eyes darted toward me, a flicker of warning, or maybe apology. Right, she said quickly. He's been helping me with the project. Something in my chest twisted. Helping. Project. The words felt wrong in her mouth. Too formal. Too small for what was actually happening between us. The man chatted for a few minutes, harmless things, deadlines, schedules, but I couldn't hear any of it. All I could see was the slight tremor in her hand as she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way she avoided my eyes completely. When he finally left, the silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. I spoke first. So that's what I am? She closed her eyes. Don't do that. Do what? Turn this into something it's not. Something it's not? I stepped closer, not loud, just steady. You looked me in the eyes and told me not to lie to myself. But you stop, she said sharply, turning toward me. You don't understand what this could cost me. And what about me? She blinked, caught off guard. You get to protect yourself, I said. But I get to be the secret? Her jaw tightened. It's not like that. Then tell me what it's like. She hesitated, too long. I took another step. Tell me you don't feel it. Her silence was answer enough. But then she whispered, It doesn't matter if I do. Her voice trembled again, but her hands, they were steady when she pressed them against my chest, trying to push me back. Except she didn't push hard enough. We stood there, breath mingling, too close for logic, too far for comfort. I shouldn't have said that you were an intern, she said quietly, finally. I panicked. He's not just a colleague. My stomach dropped. Who is he then? She hesitated. Then, he's my ex-husband. The words landed like a crack in the air. He's been trying to fix things, she said, voice breaking slightly. But I don't want what we had. I don't know what I want. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. And what about me? Her eyes met mine, raw, unguarded. You're what I shouldn't want. The distance between us vanished. For a heartbeat we were both past reason, breath to breath, her hand at my collar, my thumb brushing the edge of her jaw. But before it could happen, before the final line could blur, she stepped back, whispering, If we keep going, I won't stop. And just like that, she left the room, leaving the air thick with what we both already knew. It was too late to turn back. The next time I saw her, it was raining. Not the soft kind, the kind that sounds like static against glass, like the world is trying to drown out your thoughts. She stood by the window, arms folded, watching the street blur into streaks of light and water. She didn't turn when she heard me come in. I shouldn't have called you, she said quietly. Then why did you? She didn't answer right away. Her reflection in the glass looked fragile, almost transparent. Because I didn't know how not to. I stepped closer, slowly, giving her every chance to move away. She didn't. The room smelled like rain and her perfume, something floral but faint, fading at the edges. I could see the rise and fall of her breath, quick and uneven. I keep telling myself it's wrong, she said, still facing the window. That we'd only hurt each other. And do you believe that? She hesitated. I try to. Her voice cracked slightly, and before I could stop myself, I reached out, my hand brushing her shoulder. Just a touch. But she leaned into it. For a long moment, we stayed like that, quiet, the only sound the rain hitting the glass. She turned slowly, her face inches from mine. The faint tremble in her lips made my chest tighten. You should go, she whispered. I've tried that, I said. It didn't work. Something in her broke then, not loudly, not dramatically, just a small surrender in her eyes. She reached up and touched my collar, smoothing a wrinkle that wasn't there. Her fingers lingered longer than they should have. You don't understand what this means, she said. I don't think I need to, I murmured. She looked at me, really looked, and whatever was left of the space between us vanished. Her forehead rested lightly against mine, her breath shaky. This won't end well, she whispered. Then let it at least start honestly, I said. Her eyes closed. I could feel the warmth of her hands against my chest, her pulse quick beneath her skin. Every rational thought I had was drowned out by the sound of her breathing, the nearness of her. She lifted her face slightly, close enough that the rain light caught in her eyes. Her voice was barely a sound. You have no idea what you're doing to me. Maybe I do. The words were enough. Her hand trembled once, then steadied. And then, just before the distance finally disappeared, she stopped. Her fingers curled around my wrist, anchoring herself. If I cross this line, she said, I won't be able to pretend anymore. Then don't pretend. For a heartbeat, we were still, suspended between fear and wanting, both knowing what came next would change everything. And then she let out a long, uneven breath, the kind that sounds like giving in. When she finally looked up, there was no hesitation left in her eyes. That was the moment I knew, whether we stepped forward or away, we would never be strangers again. Morning came quietly. The rain had stopped sometime in the night, leaving the world washed and still. Her apartment smelled like coffee and something faintly sweet, the kind of calm that follows a storm. She was sitting on the couch when I woke, hair loose, sweater slipping off one shoulder, staring out the window like she'd been waiting for the day to make up its mind. For a moment, I just watched her. The way her fingers circled her mug, the small crease between her brows, the quiet peace of someone who'd finally stopped running from herself. When she noticed me, she smiled, small, tired, real. You're still here. I wasn't sure if I should be. She nodded, setting her cup down. Neither was I. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It felt like something had settled, not perfectly, but honestly. She sighed softly. I keep thinking about all the reasons this shouldn't work. The years between us. What people would say. The fact that I was supposed to know better. I sat beside her close enough that our knees touched. And, she looked at me, eyes warm but unsure. It still feels right when you're here. Her honesty hit deeper than any confession could have. I reached for her hand slowly, almost afraid she'd pull away. She didn't. Her fingers slipped into mine, steady, deliberate. I'm not asking you to promise anything, I said. Just don't pretend it didn't mean something. She exhaled, a quiet laugh caught somewhere between relief and disbelief. You have no idea how much it did. We sat there for a while, saying nothing, watching the light shift across the floor. Eventually, she leaned against me, not dramatically, not for comfort, just because it felt natural. My arm went around her shoulders, and she didn't move away. Her head rested against my chest, her breath syncing with mine. The world outside felt far away, no clocks ticking, no rules waiting to be obeyed. Just two people who had finally stopped denying the obvious. After a long silence, she spoke again. You know this won't be simple. I don't want simple, I said. That made her laugh softly, that same quiet sound I'd come to crave. She looked up at me then, her hand tracing an absent line along my wrist, her eyes soft but unguarded. You make me feel seen again, she whispered. I brushed a stray strand of hair from her face, my thumb lingering near her cheek. And you make me feel like I'm finally looking at something real. For once, neither of us hesitated. She leaned forward, and when our foreheads touched, it wasn't a rush, it was something gentler, truer. A promise made without words. The world didn't need to know what happened next. It was enough that we did.